growing up, I was a really, really clumsy child. I was loud, obnoxious. Not much has really changed. I didn't know how to sit in a dress. That may have changed a little bit. And I was very, very hyper. And my mother, who is the most graceful, ladylike person I've ever come across in my life, would always get angry at me. She would say, "Why do you have to be so hyper? Why are you so loud? Talk softly. Be ladylike. Be gentle." So I had this brilliant idea with my cousin to climb on top of the monkey bars that were in our backyard, jump onto a branch in a tree, and then my cousin was going to catch me because I was going to fly. And if I fell, he was going to catch me. And so I dove right off the branch, and my cousin, who was so, relying, he stepped back because he saw this very nice-shaped woman coming down on him. And he stepped back, and I sprained my ankle. And what that basically meant was that I couldn't wear the beautiful dress that my mom had bought for a party that night, and this devastated her. And I typically choose to wear jeans and shorts because I choose to be comfortable. I choose to be comfortable in my own skin. I choose to present myself comfortably. But I wore this very uncomfortable dress today because my story that I want to share with you is titled, "It's a Dress, Not a Yes." And think about that for a minute. Think about what you did as soon as I came onto the stage holding my shoes because I didn't want to fall on my face. Think about what you did. Immediately, we as people take an individual as soon as we see them, based on what they wear. We build an image. We construct an identity. We construct their individuality. And what we do is we build this notion of what they must be, who they must be, what they must be feeling, how do they think, what is their lifestyle, what defines them. And it's all based on a dress, all based on this one dress that is fitting me very tightly, that is very low, that is very high, and that is probably giving my mother heart palpitations while she's watching this at work. And this is not something that we do actively, right? This is not something that we sit here and say, okay, she's wearing this, so let me think about what she is as a person. We have evolved as a community to build and depend our individuality on appearance, and appearance alone, which is why when the daughters of all the fathers grow up, go to high school, and they start wearing Daisy Dukes and start wearing really short dresses and start wearing tank tops and tube tops and halter tops, fathers start to have little panic attacks. But fathers don't do this when their sons go out topless to a beach party. They don't think this way when their daughters are clad completely in abayas, which is not right? This is not something that builds our identity. It is not something that is defined by appearance alone. So I'll share with you a story of a time that this almost happened. One summer, I went to India. My brother and I, who's here in the audience today, we're the only cousins in our family that grew up here in America. We were not born in India. We were not raised in India. So those 2 months during the summer when our parents would be working, they would ship us off so we could learn about our culture. We could spend time with our grandparents. We could spend time with our family. And we could learn about what it means to be an Indian person, all without having to skip weeks and weeks of school. And while we were there, it was miserable. Let's just say that. It was hot. It was humid. It was sweaty. It was sticky. It was not fun at all. And summer's supposed to be fun. And what made it even more comfortable was the fact that there's no centralized air conditioning anywhere in India, which was just great. And so one morning, I woke up completely exhausted by the heat of that brutal summer. And I decided that for the sake of my own sanity, I had to wear a dress, something that I'd never worn in India before. So I came out of the shower wearing this dress, and you would have thought by the look on my uncle's face that I came out of that shower butt naked. No towel, nothing. You would have thought that I was wearing something scandalous and my name was Foxy. That's what you would have thought. So he looks at me in this room where I'm standing, completely invisible except for the dress, because I didn't exist. It was just that one dress. And what he does is he turns to my cousin, and he tells her, "Please tell her to be mindful of where she is. This is not America, and regardless, girls her age should not be dressing this way." Think about that for a minute. So to give you an idea of how scandalous of an 11-year-old I was, this dress was knee-length, it was short-sleeved, and it was loose-fitting, really well ventilated for the summer, if you will. And I hope that somewhere out there there's someone watching this that can sympathize with this 11-year-old girl that was completely confused by what it meant to be in a certain place, at a certain age, in a certain garment, and why that was considered so wrong. And if I could go back to my 11-year-old self now look her in the eyes and tell her why it was wrong. I would tell her that there was absolutely nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing, not a single thing at all. The concern was that as a growing young woman, being dressed a certain way would attract the wrong type of attention, which if you've ever been to a country that is different from America, which is not as progressive, you will find that that is absolutely true. But this is not something that only happens in India. This is not something that only happens in the Middle East. It happens here. Who's been to a bachelor party? What do you see? Women that are not dressed fully. Women that are not dressed fully. You go to Saudi Arabia, you see women that are clad completely. Does that mean that rape and harassment and molestation and oppression don't happen there? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this is the notion that is completely bogus, that women are safe. Women are protected from harassment, molestation, objectification, rape, and in cases death if they are clad. And this is wrong. Because they are harassed, molested, oppressed, raped, and beaten and killed despite being completely clad. Despite this, not because of it. There was a highly profiled Delhi rape case 2-3 years ago. There was a young woman who was going home from the movies one night after she had just passed her physiotherapy exam and was licensed. And she took a private bus as she was going home from the movies, and before she was dumped on the side of the road, completely butt naked, absolutely clad without garment in a pool of her own blood, she was grotesquely gang raped by 5 men, one who was a juvenile. She was beaten with a rod that they inserted inside of her to cause deliberate pain, and her intestines were pulled out with someone's bare hands. That woman died 2 days later in a hospital in Singapore, but not before being dumped on the side of the road, completely naked, where 50 observers stood by, not taking anything to cover her. Now I ask you, if being completely clothed was going to protect me, if being completely clad in garment is supposed to be something that is expected of me, why did 50 observers not clad that woman who was lying on her death? She came from poverty. There is not anything that she could have worn, additional or less, that would have changed the fate of her life that day and the fate of her life that was lost at all. There was a very popular documentary that was released 2 months ago called India's Daughter by the inspiring Leslie Udwin, and if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to do so, because what she had the opportunity to do was interview the driver of the aforementioned bus, and he made a series of comments that kind of reflected on what notions currently exist, not just in India, but all around the world. One of them being that what was done to her in that bus was to teach her a lesson, that she should not be roaming the streets in the middle of the night alone. She should not be with a guy that is not a family member. And one comment in particular was, quote, "A girl is far more responsible for her own rape than a man is." Now what you've done is basically created 2 categories of women, and you've put them in 2 different environments. One that is safe. They are safe in their environment if they are dressed and garmented well and they are modest. The second, that they are unsafe if they are not dressed in a certain way. And I ask you why? Why is that so? What more could she have worn to avoid that? What was her fault? What could she have done differently? And it's not that this is a notion that is actively evolved. It is something that has subconsciously evolved. If I were to go to someone in the audience and say, this is a problem, we need to change it, there is a good likelihood that they could say, yes, we absolutely do, or 2, no, I'm not the problem, I'm not a rapist, but I'll help you solve it. But you don't have to be a rapist. You don't have to oppress women. You don't have to harass women. You don't have to molest them to contribute to this culture. The moment that you decide that what I am wearing and what the girl next to you is wearing or what the guy next to you is wearing dictates the outcome of their life and the outcome of their fate, you contribute to that culture. You become a part of that culture, and you become that culture. And if you think this is an oversimplified problem, I assure you that this is happening all across campuses, all across cultures, all across worlds, and all across your families additionally. And if there is a takeaway from this, it's not that I'm asking you to antagonize a group. I'm not asking you to antagonize a gender and hold them accountable. This is a social obligation. This is something that we have to be a part of. Right now, there is probably 2 sets of parents that are teaching their daughter how she should dress to be safe when she goes off to college in the fall. but there's probably not one person teaching their son that please don't rape a girl when you go to school. Not at all. And so what I ask you today is to take a challenge. And that challenge is to raise your daughters to be confident, to be secure, to be safe, and not have to build this culture where the men are overlooking the women, where the men are there to protect the women. Teach your daughters to be safe. Don't teach your daughters how to not dress. Teach your sons not to rape. This begins here and this begins now, because tomorrow it's going to be you in that dress, it's going to be your daughters in that dress, it's going to be your sons that are responsible. Thank you.